Hi, welcome to Actual Spinster. My name is Anna Marie and today's video is gonna be a TBR video for summer. I did wake up and I was exceptionally cold today, so I'm literally wearing a cardigan, so it's not really necessarily feeling like summer, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I just thought I would show you this collection of books that I would like to read over the summer-ish. There are a few little events or events over the summer, and I have got some books that sort of fit inside of those, but this isn't a dedicated TBR for those events, but I will mention them when I get to them, I think. I have also made some decisions about what I'm wanting to try and read in the next few months, because something has just shifted in terms of my PhD reading, so I'm hoping to have a bit more space for other more intensive reading, but that's not related to my PhD, which is partially why I want to read Jane Austen, Women, Politics and the Novel by Claudia L. Johnson. And this would work for Jane Austen July, which obviously is happening in July. It's not, reading a Jane Austen novel, but it's reading something related to Jane Austen. So that's a nice way to participate, and it's been on my TBR for a long time. And yeah, it would just be great to get to it. It does have a very small font, but I think I need to find where I put my dyslexia coloured panels that help me read and track the page better, and that will maybe help me. Now that I'm taking off my cardigan, I will say, whilst I didn't knit this, my friend did, which is very impressive, but also I did duplicate stitch embroider this. So following from that Jane Austen book, I have another non-fiction book that I want to read, which is Shakespeare's Domestic Tragedies by Emma Whipday. I did actually start reading this a little while ago, but I encountered a play in it that I wanted to read before I read what Emma Whipday was writing about it, which was actually this, The Witch of Edmonton. So I have now read that. I think there is this other play that I also want to read that is referenced quite heavily in some of the chapters of the book, which is The Tamer Tame by John Fletcher, so I also might pause reading it to read this, but either way that's on this TBR, Shakespeare's Domestic Tragedies. I guess then the next sort of chunk, which is only two of them I think, is translated work. Something that I would really like to read is Ede, or maybe it's Ida and Olive, which is a French 13th century poem. I think it sounds really interesting, queer stuff, with this girl dressing up as a knight in order to escape from her father. It's translated by Munawa Abuchi. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to reading it. I think it will be a really interesting experience. It's a complete curveball, and then we have a contemporary novel. This is Is Mother Dead by Vigdis Hjorth, which is translated from Norwegian by Charlotte Barsland. Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. I've heard good things about it. I'm a big Vigdis Hjorth fan, I would say. I've read not super loads of her work, but I think 3 of her work that was published into English, and now I think there's this one. I also think another one just came out, maybe called If Only, and there could be more, but she's written a lot of novels in Norwegian, which is, the language she originally writes in. So I'm looking forward to reading all of this, and I think this is going to be sort of more of the same in terms of her work, but also I'm sure it'll be new as well, Family Difficulty. Is Mother Dead is an excellent title. So, and yeah, also this will count for Women in Translation month in August, which I do try to read at least something for, but I'm sure that I'll maybe want to make a larger or more specific TBR for it, because I always have eyes bigger than my appetite for Women in Translation Month planning, I feel but also I guess for most book events where you think you're going to read 18 billion things, and then you actually can't, because you're a human being and not, I don't know, someone who can read 18 billion things in one go. Yeah, okay, I think the rest are all a bit more straightforward in the sense that they're all here. Okay, and then so the other books are all fiction books, not in any order. There's Thomas Hardy, Desperate Remedies. I should say Desperate Remedies by Thomas Hardy. Don't know why I said that weird. This is his first novel, and I think I have access to an audiobook, and so I thought it would be maybe nice to read and audiobook this. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to read his first work. I have read 3 or 4 things I think by him at this point. I'm not like aiming to read everything for sure, but I am kind of interested to read like a chunk of his work and maybe like the majority, we'll see. So this would be like interesting to get to. I think it was published in the 1870s, which I also kind of feel like maybe aside from his work, I don't know that I have that much reading that I've done in that decade of the Victorian era. So yeah, just will be cool to get to. Also, this has a character called Cytherea, which I've definitely mentioned before, which I just think is kind of cool. Another book is The Juniper Tree by Barbara Comyns. I think maybe 2 years ago now, I read a Barbara Comyns book called Who Was Changed and Who Was Dead, and it made me really intrigued in her work. Sorry if I keep saying interesting, intrigued, whatever. It made me want to check out more of her work. So yeah, I thought this looked interesting. I think it's like a fairy tale retelling type thing, but with a Barbara Comyns twist. Really like the cover as well that was chosen. Also fairly short, so that's kind of nice, although the font is quite small. I felt like Barbara Comyns, like the book of hers that I read before, had this kind of interesting like surrealist flavour, and so I kind of am like looking forward to seeing if that's also present in like more of her work. I've got 2 books then that I've like got fairly recently. One is Disorientation by Elaine Shea Chew, which is about a PhD student, 29-year-old PhD student I think, who's doing her dissertation on a much lauded poet, Xiao Wen Chu. And when she accidentally stumbles upon something like in an archive about the poet that might be her way out of academic hell. And this is a book that came out a few years ago, and I had put it on my sort of like intrigued to potentially check out, or like, and I was going through books that were on my TBR that I don't own, and I was like, this one looks like maybe I should try it. And yeah, I thought it would be potentially enjoyable. And I do really like books about, like, I love campus novels. I wouldn't say that I super love like dark academia, but I like academia novels. You know, I'm thinking of more like Elif Batuman series as opposed to like The Secret History, although I obviously like, I like that, I just don't love it. And I like stories about research too, because I am a nerd. But yeah, so I thought that this could be fun to check out. And then the other book that I got more recently is The Victorian Chaise Longue by Margarita Lasky, which is also a pretty short book, so that's helpful. And this, I think, is about a woman who is in the 1950s, and then she like takes a nap on a chaise longue and like is transported into the Victorian era, like backwards into the Victorian era, so it's like time traveling. I feel like it will probably be quite quick to read. Then we have like a sci-fi novel that I have had on my shelf for like maybe 2 years now, and I've never like really felt inclined to read it, so I was thinking that I would use this TBR as like a way to like try it and then hopefully keep reading it. And this is Nova by Samuel R. Delany. I've only read one Delany before, and that's Babel 17, but I did really like that, and I thought it had some really cool fun kind of explorations of like linguistic stuff. I mean, it was from the 60s I think, so it was very like molded by the linguistic theories of the time, which are definitely like, you know, a little outdated to say the least. But I also really liked what it said about triad relationships and also grief. I really liked how it explored that. And yeah, so I have been kind of, you know, wanting to read more of his work. A couple of his like big famous ones, or like sort of more well-known ones, I haven't necessarily wanted to check out for various reasons in terms of like their content. I can't remember what the one I'm thinking of is called, but there's one that I just don't think I'm gonna read. And then I think another one is just also very difficult, the one that's like Stars in My Pocket, like Grains of Sand. Although I definitely might read that one day, just I don't think I have the space, the cognitive capacity to do that right now. But yeah, so this is Nova. I think it's about like energy source fighting, basically. Illyrion, the most precious energy source in the galaxy. The varied and exotic crew who sign up with Captain Lork Van Ray know the search for it is dangerous, and they soon learn that they are involved in a deadly race with the charismatic but vicious leader of an opposing space federation. So kind of seems like, you know, sci-fi, just sort of like fairly, I don't necessarily want to say generic, but I do think I mean it in this literal sense of like genre-y sci-fi, like spaceship stuff, but I'm sure it would be interesting. And yeah, also I one thing I really liked about Babel 17 was that like Delany clearly is like trying to think about what humanity will become, in the sense of like, you know, different developments in terms of people's bodies and gender stuff and things like that, and I feel like that's really interesting, especially because it's sort of like reading books from the 60s, 70s that imagine future stuff is a sort of like retro futuristic kind of place to be now, because obviously I'm in some of the future, or like nearer the future that these books are like imagining, and I can kind of gauge some of that imagination, or I can kind of appreciate some of the hopefulness or optimism in some of those like ideas about the future. Although yeah, lots of these books obviously are like either set in like a time that you don't know or much further ahead, but you know, anyway, I hope that made sense. The final book on this TBR to show is a Muriel Spark novel, which is A Far Cry from Kensington. I kind of put this on because I may or may not like make a thing about like Virago season, which is where during Virgo season I try to read at least one Virago book, and I have done for the past few years, I think. So yeah, I kind of wanted to put this there as a way to like try to make it space for it, even if I don't actually sort of actively make a TBR or do anything particular for it, except for trying to read this. So yeah, I think it will probably be kind of like muchness of Muriel Spark's work, which tends to be like biting and acerbic and funny. Yeah, this also seems to be in like a kind of, not a series actually, but just in the sense of like, she definitely wrote a few books that are like interested in like the book industry, the publishing industry. And I think that, yeah, this is about some publishing drama and also blackmail in terms of someone's previous behaviour and or criticism of various writing. So yeah, I'm sure it would be fun to read. I think those are all of the books that I wanted to talk about for this little TBR. I feel like, I mean, I did really very badly with my spring TBR reading, but it's also because I barely read anything in spring, and it was just like really tough. So hopefully I'll do a little bit better with this summer reading, but it's also like, it's always fun to just like put selections of books together and talk about them, so this is also kind of a way to do that, and it's okay if I don't get to these anytime soon, but hopefully I will get to like at least one or two. I think I only managed about 2 on my spring TBR, so hopefully more than that, but we'll see. I'm trying to keep the pressure low as opposed to intense. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these books and what you think about them, or maybe if I should like try and prioritize them more. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think, and I hope you're having a good day when you're watching this, and I will talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye!